Hello and welcome back to Ancient Aliens in Modern Times. We're your hosts, Melanie Wild
and Stephanie Yelovich. My friend, let us get into it. I'm going to do it different every time, I've decided.
I like that, sister. I'm so excited for today's conversation. We're going to dial it in and get really personal with this one because we've been talking a lot of stuff of like informational overload, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Lots of
a lot of
research over
education,
here.
lots of research. Which we live for.
We love.
Yeah, but we want to integrate that.
Agree.
So, yeah, today we kind of have a topic of what we've been noticing both within ourselves and within like the spiritual community at large. And that is like changing our minds, right?
Yes, ma'am. And it's interesting because I don't really know if I ever thought I'd be here. And very honestly, it's this beautiful podcast platform that Mel and I have created together that's helping bring this information and this realization forward. And that's been such a gift. It's been very confronting. It's been very interesting. I think we both have been slightly uncomfortable at times, but also we found such relief, or I found such relief in knowing that there are others out there like us thinking the same.
Yeah, there are many others, and I've noticed a larger movement of people that were like once all about the ice baths, the Wim Hof, the all of the spiritual gurus, the
Mhm.
yoga, the total dedication to like women's circles and witchcraft, moon water, following
Mhm.
the cycles of the moon, following the astrology, everything so purposefully and
Mm.
deeply dove into the deep end of the spiritual waters. A lot of these people are now coming up out of these waters for air, and they're like, wait a minute, I didn't need any of that. None of
Huh.
that actually brought me back. It's like that meme. I'm sure many of you have seen this meme where it's like the beginner's spiritual starter pack, and it's like crystals and the cube of Metatron and the flower of life and um the books on astrology and
Yep.
like the tarot decks and the oracle decks and all of the things um, for the beginner's spiritual starter pack. And then the advanced spiritual pack is just a cigarette and a coffee.
And I think, Mel, I love that you mentioned all of those things because I know you and I both, like, I've indulged in using, and we're not saying that those things aren't great tools and beautiful practices, but are those things that shape our identity and who we are, and do we need them every single day to connect to God, source, receive our messages? I don't know, right?
Or do we just need the smoke and the coffee? Because, like,
Yeah.
basically, like, what I'm learning in my spiritual journey and coming to understand, it's just like this like full circle moment recently of like what it all means is just coming back to the basics. It's like, it's
Yes.
really just about like, we go on this like grand search for the meaning of life, for like this connection to God, to find our life purpose. And then we come all the way back and we're like, it's really just about doing the dishes.
Yeah. Work is prayer, right? That's one
Yeah.
of my favorite expressions. Like, I receive some of the most powerful messages when I'm doing the dishes because I'm focused, I'm present, and
In the
I think,
here and now.
in the here and now. And I think so many of us have relied on those outside sources. And when we come back to this, like we've talked about this before, the simplicity, right? Which is boring sometimes. It doesn't involve like shiny trips to Arizona and all those things, even though I want to do all of those things. I love Earth and I love nature. And if I can experience it all, to me, that's God as well. Like we talked about the ancient Egyptians believing in their original source as actually being elements of nature. It's like my church is the mountains. I'm getting
Totally.
off topic, but please continue. But I just wanna talk about the mountains, guys. I just wanna go there. Let's go now.
Yeah. Poor Stephanie, you're way a ways from the mountains.
Ontario.
Yeah,
Though, we have a beautiful large lake, and I love being by the water, and I do love the amazing nature, and the city that I live in is actually the waterfall capital of the world. Not just Canada, the world. We have
that's
so
pretty
many
cool.
waterfalls within this city. We have a lot of, like, elemental fairy energy out here, it's pretty cool.
I love
But,
a good
yeah,
waterfall.
I
But
digress.
yeah, we so, we wanna talk about a couple different books,
Hmm,
obviously,
obviously.
obviously, but they're,
Not
like
new to
they're
us.
more philosophical than, like, educational. So
Agree, and
and they're
simplistic in their nature.
simplistic, and they're both, like, for Steph, her book, The Four Agreements, and my book, The
Mhm.
Alchemist, for both of us, it's been, like, really pivotal books in our journeys, and
Mm,
I think I speak for both of us that they were both put on our journeys very early on,
yep.
and for me, The Alchemist I read The Alchemist in grade 11 for a book project in English class, so it was assigned to me, I didn't choose it, it found me.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Mm.
so this is over 20 years ago. And I remember reading that book and just, like, feeling, like, a profound shift within me, and I read it twice, and I was not a reader in my youth because I have
Mhm.
dyslexia and, I had a hard time, like, just, like, following a book from point A to the start to the finish, and I, loved this book. Like, this book was,
Mm.
like I read it twice in a row. I was like,
Wow.
this is, like, a game changer." And I should also say, like, at that point in my life, I believe that I was on the edge of stopping going to church because
Mm.
I found church on my own, like, my family was not religious, but I started going to a Pentecostal Christian church when I was, like, 13-ish,
Mm.
and that's when I found God and met Jesus, and then I experienced a significant amount of death in my life, and the people that were dying were all very young people, they were all friends, and so I was also at a point where I was, like, mad at God and, like,
Mm.
if there's truly a
Yeah.
God in this world, why is he killing 12-year-olds? Why is he killing 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds? Like, I didn't
Yeah.
understand why there was so much death to young people. Like, death to old people made more sense to me because it's like you lived your
Mm.
life, you got your story, you did it, and, like but these young people that didn't even get to start. So I was, like, mad and, like, starting to turn away from God, and then I read this book, and what's interesting actually is I read this book now I'm like, the timeline's coming back.
Mm.
I read this book in grade 11. I had my first love in grade 11, and then he died the summer going into grade 12.
Oh.
Yeah, and,
Oh, wow.
so yeah, he died in a car accident, and so that it was when Jeremy died that I was like, I there's no way. No
Mm.
way is there a God. This is brutal. Because at that point already, like, 4 other people, young people had died. So I was just like but it's interesting that I read this book before he died. And so it stuck within me somewhere deep inside
Mm.
because the book, if you've read it, or if you haven't read it, I'll give you, like, a synopsis of what it is. So
Mhm.
this young boy, his name is Santiago, and he goes on this quest. Now, from a young age, he knew within him he wanted to travel, and like where they're in I don't know exactly where, but somewhere in the Middle East, and they his family suggests, like, "No, you can't be a shepherd, like, you have to be a baker or something, like, within the
Mm.
town because you wanna have a wife and a kid." And he's like, "But I really wanna travel." And his dad's like, "But you don't have any money to travel, like, this isn't gonna work." But his heart was just so set on, like, needing to travel, so he was like, "I'm gonna be a shepherd." So his dad, like, digs out some coins, and he's like, "This was gonna be your inheritance, but go and buy yourself a flock of sheep." So he does, and then he becomes a shepherd, and, like, this is his way of traveling while still making an income. And then he has this, like, reoccurring dream where he finds this treasure in Egypt at the pyramids,
Mm.
and he's like this reoccurring dream keeps coming up, and he's like, "I need to go and find this treasure, like, it must mean something that I keep having this dream of this treasure at the pyramids." And then he meets this old man um, who somehow knows about his dream. And so this is setting us
Mm.
up to, like, say that God is speaking to us, to Santiago. He's speaking to him through these omens or signs that keep appearing. And so this old man shows up and talks to him as though he knows about his dream, and this part kinda blew my mind because I just reread the book, and, his name is Melchizedek, and he describes himself as the king of Salem, and, if
Whoa.
you have been following me separately from the podcast, I talk about Melchizedek quite a bit as the king of Salem from the biblical story, and I believe that Yeshua, Jesus, is a incarnation of Melchizedek, that they're the same oversoul. But
Mm.
anyway, so I was just like, "Holy forking shirt balls." This Melchizedek was implanted in my psyche when I was, like, 16 years old, and then he came back up 20 years later while I'm doing my research, and I totally forgot about it. But anyway,
Wow.
I digress. So, Melchizedek, the king of Salem, who's a real
Omens,
figure,
signs.
omens and signs, which is so funny because this whole book is this full circle moment, and here I am reading
Yes.
it at 37 years old and being like, "Oh my goodness, I I read this 20 years ago, and and the book is about a full circle moment, and I'm having a full circle moment with this book." So
Wow.
anyway, so he Melchizedek tells him about God and how God is gonna provide omens and that the universe is going to do everything in its power to make your destiny come true. So, like, whatever you have your heart set on, whatever is your personal truth and your personal power, if as long as you take the action steps to achieve that, then the universe or God, whatever you wanna call it, the grand master, the grand architect at it all, is going to do everything in its power to make it happen for you. And so Santiago goes off on this grand journey of to get to Egypt by foot, right? And which seems like an impossible task, and he along the journey comes into many different obstacles and trials and tribulations that I won't get into all of the details. But he discovers he finds the philosopher's stone. He brings these lessons forward, right? And he gets robbed multiple times, like he's faced with death multiple times, and then he ends up in Egypt, and then this war is breaking out while he's there, and so, like, trying to cross the desert while this war is breaking out seems impossible, but he's just, like, stuck to this mission, and then he meets this alchemist. He's called the alchemist.
Mm.
And so this alchemist is now, like, the same as Melchizedek in his journey, like, knows things about Santiago that nobody should know about him, and so he becomes his new guide, and the alchemist teaches him how to well, he doesn't actually teach him. He tells him that the wisdom is already within him, right? And so he has to access it, and he's like, "Well, show me how to do it. Like, show me how to alchemize this into that," because this alchemist is known for turning lead into gold. And he's like,
Mm.
"You just do it." And he's like, "What do you mean you just do it? What do you mean? How do I just do it? Tell me this." He's like, "You just do it. You practice." And so they like then they're confronted at the very end of the book, they're confronted with these soldiers who want to kill them. And the alchemist is like, "Oh, my friend here is an alchemist, and he brought money for you." And so he gives Santiago's all of his money, which is a substantial amount of money that he's earned on his track, and gives all of his money away. And Santiago's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, you either give him the money or you don't live anymore." And then not only does he give him the money, but he tells these soldiers that my friend Santiago, the alchemist, can turn himself into wind, a wind so strong that it'll destroy the army that you're fighting. And they're like, "Okay, we'll do it." And he's like, he needs 3 days to do it. And then they leave and they're like, "Okay, you have 3 days. And if you don't do it, we'll kill you," kind of thing. And so Santiago's like, "Well, how am I supposed to do that?" He's like, you do it." He's like, "Well, but if I don't, then we'll both die." He's like, "No, no, no, I won't die because I already know how to do it, but you will." Santiago's like, "What?" This is so rude. So he like the whole thing, like the whole way along the book is like Santiago like having these conversations with God, but like through nature, which is so amazing for what
Mm.
you've already brought up, Stephanie. Like he
Mm.
he talks to the sand dunes, he talks to the wind, he talks to the sun, he talks to the animals. And like his whole thing is about like how he knew his flock of sheep and like knew everything, knew where the by listening to nature, by listening to the sheep, that they would find water when they needed water. And like how God always provided for the sheep what the sheep needed to survive. And if God would do that for the sheep, then God would do that for him too. And so he's like, "I need you, God, to turn me into wind because that's what I need now." And so he talks to God and then it happens. And he turns into wind, right? And then he's set free from these soldiers and he finally makes it to the pyramids where at the very end of the story, he's robbed once again. And while he's being robbed, the robbers are asking him, "What are you doing here as a foreigner? Like, you do not belong here." And he's like, "Well,
Mm.
I had this dream. I had this dream of treasure at the pyramids, and I had to come and find it." And the robber goes, "Oh, you silly little boy. I've had a dream of this tree in this," and I can't remember, says the name of the town. I had this sycamore tree, I think that's what it was called, the sycamore tree, and where there's a treasure. And I had that dream too many times, and I wasn't stupid enough to go looking for it. Look at what you've done now." And Santiago's like, that's the tree that he grew up under, like where his family is from. And he's like, so this like full circle moment of like this crazy journey of years gone by that he's been on, all to get called back to where he's from and where his roots are. And that the way to find your personal truth, your personal purpose in this world is
Mm.
to just be in it right now. It's not out there. It's not
Mm.
far away in a year-long journey ahead. It's literally right here, right now, attending to your sheep, attending to your groceries, attending to your home, attending to your physical health right here, right now. And so what I found really like full circle for me is that I've been on this journey for the last
Mm.
20 years since I read that book, since I ended my relationship with God and Jesus at 19 years old when the final young person died. I have been searching for this meaning of life. And over the last few years, I've really been coming to understand that this meaning of life, my life purpose, is just in this simple moment of being with my family, and sharing love and memories and this like space of like heart coherence together. And I
Mm.
never had to go anywhere to find that. It was right there the whole time. But I did need to have the journey to
Mm.
finally come to this understanding 20 years later that that was what it was the whole time. And so I think that when we're moving through this seeking, and I feel like most of you listeners are also on this journey, because I don't think you would be listening to a podcast like ours if you weren't looking
Mm.
and seeking for the meaning of something bigger, is that, you know, the seeking is a part of it, and so no matter all of these steps towards finding the answer, the ultimate answer that you've taken, those steps might not resonate with you anymore, but they were necessary on your journey to get where you are today. And so it's okay to change your mind and also have great gratitude towards the
Mm.
things that we thought we needed, but we didn't need. If that does that make sense?
Yes, that was so beautiful. And thank you, Mel. That was really lovely. I'm a little emotional as you have shared that beautiful story. Thank you. Like in the nicest way. Like my heart is
Yeah,
swelling with love.
with love.
You made me think as well, in our journey we talk so much about, and in the spiritual community, right? And on this journey before we get to the destination, we talk about these like dimensions we want to access and these places we want to go, but we have to remember that we came here to planet Earth to be in the 3D. We came here to be
Mhm,
in human bodies. We came here to be human. And that is our
mhm.
power in that we like, what a gift to be able to feel, to be able to love, to be able to eat beautiful food, to be able to laugh with friends, to be able to hold your child and see that child laugh, That is, first of all, not those are things that not everybody on this planet has, and it's not a given that they have them. And
Mhm.
I really think that, what I love about what you just shared was the destination didn't matter at all. It was the journey that was important. It was what he learned along
Yes.
the way, and those obstacles that essentially became gifts for him because they taught him things and they showed him who he was, and oh, wow, that's beautiful. It's funny, I've actually had The Alchemist sitting on my shelf. I don't remember when I bought it. I'm gonna say in my early 20s, and I still have not read it. It's so funny. So, like, it's just so beautiful that it's come forward in this way. I am going to read it, don't worry, even though I know what happens at the end.
Yeah, sorry, spoiler. I didn't have a spoiler
No,
alert
no,
there.
no, no, no. No, it's all good. It's all good, and I think we're really seeing this as well, like, you've talked about this, like, in the community here, and, there's even a gal on Instagram that's, like, doing a series talking about why she's changed her mind about certain spiritual beliefs, and
Mhm.
exactly, she said a very similar thing that you just said, and that all of those things and all of that seeking that she did brought her right back to herself. And
Right.
there was nothing wrong with her. She didn't need these crazy abilities to, be able to channel aliens and talk to dragons. Like, that does happen. That's a side effect. Trust me. But, it is in the sparkle on the water. God is in the breeze through the mountains and the trees.
Mhm.
And wow, it's so powerful. I feel like I had something else to say, but I don't know. I'm lost in the love of it all.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, just, bringing into what other, spiritual influencers are saying about this, and,
Mm,
having this change of mind, is that, okay, I was channeling with aliens, and I was astral projecting, and I was trying to reach this ninth dimensional state of being, because I thought that that is where God lived. And I thought
yes.
that by doing those plant medicines and doing all of these wild and cool and interesting and fascinating things, that that is where I was going to meet God. But what
Mm,
I didn't realize is that God was just, right here, and I didn't actually need to do any of those. But had I not done any of that, had I not gone on that quest,
yes.
I may have never realized that God was right here in my living room, I may
Bingo.
not have known that. And so I don't need to channel with aliens anymore, and I don't need to learn how to levitate anymore. I was, super hung up on learning how to levitate for a while there.
I love you. I'm still trying to break a glass with my voice, but it hasn't happened yet, so I'll find the right frequency, don't worry.
While, like, I was on this quest, and I still very much am, like, for me now, the quest is shifted, into more of, like, a third dimensional quest of, like,
Mm,
reading all of these ancient scriptures and, like, trying to figure out the powers that should not be and, like, why they are in control of the whole situation.
mhm,
It's less about finding God for me now and more about finding truth for me. But what I know to be true is that while I'm seeking this information, I'm still and always will be connected to my creator, to my God, to my source. And through that I'm connected to love because that is what creator is. It's literally
yes,
love in its like most pure form. And so
mhm,
long as I'm, like, anchored in this, like, connection and this understanding, I can, like, go into these darker aspects of the 3rd dimension,
yes,
um, and uncover these truths because as dark as that stuff is, and I'm sure I'll will only get worse as we continue to do these deep dives, I know that like, I'm never gonna get sucked into this
mm,
darkness. I can look
mhm,
at it with, like, an objective lens and still be connected to that divine love that is all around me, um, and it which, like, really just armors me and you and us listeners that are going into these
yes,
darker, research states that we're always connected. It's like that silver cord that the spiritual community describes as like our connection,
yep,
right? Is like so long as you're connected with that silver cord, you can go up into anything and anywhere and you'll land right back in to where you need to be. Um I don't know. I feel like
yeah.
I'm rambling now.
No, I really like that. So you really made me think, Mel, when you were just sharing that about simplicity, right? If we look at, monks, for instance, we look at the Buddhist tradition and we look at what these men and women did is they sat in lotus position and they would breathe and they would sometimes sing the sacred Om and they would come into themselves for hours to just sit with themselves and with God, right? They weren't running to the store to get crystals and to put a tiara on with a crystal hanging over their third eye and to do all these things. And I'm not making fun of anybody who embodies their magical, beautiful self because I like to wear a crystal on my forehead
Totally.
sometimes because it just looks pretty, not even because there's a purpose. But I'm a Leo and I'm an opera singer. Okay, I love to be extravagant sometimes. I love to be not simple sometimes. But that's why my spirituality and my connection is so important to me because then I can strip away the opera singer self and I can come back to myself, which is to sit in silence in meditation or to do the dishes and to receive messages, right? And it makes me
Mhm.
even think of, the traditional teachings of Reiki, where we've added all these titles on the beginning, like Holy Fire Reiki and Galactic Shamanic this Reiki. Like there's all these different types, and that's fine. But when we really look at the root of it all, it is this God source energy, this energy that's connected to, the divine architect and all that is. And in channeling that and using that, it doesn't have to be anything but simple. And it makes me really think of actually my book that really changed my life, which is The Four Agreements. And we really, when we come into this planet, we don't choose right away a lot, right? So we enter into this, and I like what this book was written by Don Miguel Ruiz, who was a wisdom keeper for the Eagle Knight clan, if I'm not wrong. This is Mayan Toltec teachings. So for me, I love it because it's kind of these are survivors of the Atlantean civilization. So this is ancient knowledge that's been passed down. And I would almost call the Four Agreements a guide to living on Earth in our times because he speaks about the dream of the planet. And I say that I'm doing quotes with my fingers because what he's talking about is this dream that's already been created that we enter into when we're born. And we don't choose our names are chosen for us. We don't choose the language that we speak, that's chosen for us. And I'm speaking about, I know there is belief that we've chosen our whole body and skin color and things before we come here, which I think is, yes, partially true. But I think we sometimes choose things that might be challenging for us so that we can learn. I actually know
Yeah.
for a fact I have lived multiple of my past lives as a man, and I actually chose to be a woman in this life because I wanted a challenge. Because being a woman is awesome, but it's, there's a lot that goes on in our bodies monthly, I'm just gonna say, and emotionally. But I'm not gonna get into talking about the menstrual phases, I promise, but, very important to note those. I really goodness, sometimes I embarrass myself on a podcast, and I just did that. Okay, moving on. So, back to the 4 agreements. This book
Very
was
challenging.
one This book was one that changed my life, especially because I was made aware of the fact that I had agreed to so many things, and I don't just mean, like, my name and my language that I speak and what I look like, but I even things that are presented. So let's use the 2nd agreement, for example, or is it the 1st?
Why don't you tell us the 4 agreements first,
Oh, yeah, sure.
for
Okay.
those
Oh
that
my
don't
gosh, you
know?
know what? I actually have to give me 2 seconds. I actually have to look up because I very honestly, I focus a lot on the power of the word because that's my jam. The 4 agreements. I'm gonna look up the summarized version so that I'm not talking out my butt and, taking too long. So, the 1st agreement, it is the 1st agreement. Be impeccable with your word. That is number 1. Number 2, number 2 changed my life. I actually read this book because I had severe anxiety as a young woman, and this changed my life with that. So, do not take anything personally is agreement 2. Agreement 3 is don't make assumptions. And then agreement 4 is always do your best. Those are very, very simple statements, but those statements, and when you read this book, are very profound in how they're broken down. So just looking at and this isn't even one of the agreements that I was just talking about. This is just the introduction to the book where he speaks about the outside dream and how we are almost pulled into taking on or making these agreements. So there's basically something that like hooks our attention. And once our
Mhm.
attention is hooked, we're kind of fed into this information. And then there are things that we experience as children, like we don't want punishment. We want acknowledgement, yes, but we don't want to be punished and we don't want to do anything bad. We start to explore. Start to touch hot things and realize that, ouch, that burns my hand. Or a painting falls on our head and we learn that that really hurts when that happens. I
Uh,
say that example because this exact thing happened to Mel's sweet son, and I saw a video of it. And he
my
probably is not
14-month-old.
knocking down paintings well,
He's not
maybe
trying to
still.
hit the paintings off the wall with his hockey stick anymore.
Yeah, we're learning. We call that growth. So when we learn these things, we obviously have negative responses, but when we do things that are good, we get these, "You're a good girl. You should do
That's
that."
right.
So then we want to do more things to receive that acknowledgement or that compliment or that praise, right?
Right.
So then we start to shush and hush our actual instincts or our true feelings because we don't want to rock the boat. We want to receive that praise. We want to continue, right? So we start to make agreements so that we can survive, very honestly. And I think many of us have taken on or made agreements that maybe right now in our lives, they might have worked for us in the future, or we thought they weren't our choice and we couldn't change them. And then we come to realize, full circle moment, that we have the power to change them and we don't have to take on those agreements going forward. And we can actually write a new one. So
Right.
I find this so powerful because, again, it's bringing the focus back to the self and that creation that we have or that co creation we have with God or source, and that it really is up to us in heart coherence to make
Mhm.
those changes and to make those shifts, and that we have the power to do so. And I think if I'm looking at be impeccable with your word, which is number one, and this is so incredibly powerful because, like, let's break down the word impeccable. So he breaks it down. Let me just find. So im, I believe, is means without, the prefix out, and then peccatum or peccata is a Latin word that means sin. So the word impeccable actually means without sin. And I
Mhm.
don't necessarily mean the word sin in the sense of like the Bible or the 10 Commandments sin. What he describes as a sin is when we are actually harming ourselves. So when we are sinning against ourselves. So
Right.
if we look at the concept of the fact that God lives within us, well, we're actually sinning against God, I say in quotes with my fingers again, is actually sinning against ourselves. So
Right.
when we gossip, when we talk, when we use our words for good, or sorry, let's start with good. When we use our words for good, we can create heaven on earth. We can truly
Right.
create magic. When we use our words for use black magic is actually the term that he says. Gossip, jealousy, those things are actually black magic. It's not some woman in the back with a book doing spells and lighting incense and throwing herbs in. That's not black magic. Well, it can be, but black magic is literally gossip. So just to look at these, yes, it may be a flowery term, but coming back to the simplicity and coming back to the self, black magic is so when we gossip and we speak about someone else negatively or we judge them, we again, coming back to this, we're sinning against ourselves. We're actually only
Mhm.
hurting ourselves because they're a reflection. And that reaction, that negative reaction that they have comes back to us and we have to realize that we caused that. So I think, again, simple, but yes, philosophical, but very powerful. And like I'll just briefly break down don't take anything personally. That one also really changed my life and many others. And I think the spiritual community can learn from this agreement, right? We see a meme or we see a reel saying, let's go back to Metatron isn't real or Metatron is actually not good or not helping us or not doing good things for us. Or maybe we should look at within ourselves instead of reaching out to angels or other beings. You will have people come onto that comment or reel or whatever's posted and they will write extremely hateful things because they've taken personally something that has nothing to do with them.
Mhm.
Like, us stating this information is just things we found out that we believe that or not even that we believe, that we've read about, that we've researched, that we've wanted to share with others. So who's to say that I believe all of those things and that I'm mad at you and I'm judging you? So again, now coming to the next one, do not make assumptions, right? Here we are assuming that there is a malevolent, what's the word I'm looking for? Cause behind us saying things like that, or even speculating about things, the goings on and, the where like people have been dying recently, where there have been deaths, or, we're speculating about, and I'm talking about spiritual teachers that have passed away. I'm not naming names because I don't really feel like going into specifics,
A
but it's
side
the
quest?
idea that yeah, that we are coming in and making assumptions and trying to decipher what happened to this person or did they actually hurt themselves? Did someone kill them? Is it our business? Like here we are making an assumption and so now coming back to the beginning of the book where he talks about fixing our attention. Whatever you fix your attention on, you feed and it lives.
That's right.
So when I consume those things, that's living inside of me, and
Mhm.
I think we, again, going back to when we can turn off the noise, when we can separate from what the internet is saying and what the world is saying, and we come back to self and we sit within meditation, we sit in breath work, we close our eyes and we talk to God, that's where the clarity comes. And again, is
Mhm.
it fun all the time? No. Sometimes my mind is wandering. Sometimes I'm thinking about what I want to eat for dinner, but then I come back every time I can. And that's because I'm human. And that's what I'm here to do. And that's what you're here to do. We're here to be
Totally.
human. And I am
Yeah.
someone that wants to fly to the sky and talk about the esoteric topics, and I always will. And I value those people in my life that ground me in the physical and in the present and help me to stay, keep my feet on the earth. I could go on about this book because it's fantastic, but it's a short read. If you've never read it, Mel said on an her audiobook, it was 2 hours. So that's not a
Yeah.
lot of time to listen to that. And there is just so much profound beauty in this book that I don't know. I find it really like full circle, yes. And I've read it multiple times and I find something new in it every time. But
Go
it's
on
really
about the
helped me
last one,
understand.
the
The
4th.
last one, always do your best. So I love what it says here. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. That's key. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, simply do your best and you will avoid self judgment, self abuse, and regret. All you can do is your best, man. Like, we're not perfect. We're human. Again, we're here in the 3D, and it depends on the flow of the day to day life that we live. Right.
Yeah.
And when I was posting, before, and I was talking a lot about calling in ascended masters and working with angels and star beings, I was doing my best at the time. Those were the things that I felt like I needed to share and that were extremely profound for me at the time. Right.
Mm.
And things have shifted. And now I realize I don't know if I really need to do that. I think that where I'm at, I feel good. I feel good about my teachings. And I used to devalue, so I bring a lot of my operatic, like my voice training into my voice course as well and into my work, and I teach singing to healers. Actually, a lot of my students are people who have never sung in their lives, or they want to use their voices to heal or to feel comfortable speaking on platforms like this. And I used to devalue the fact that I was giving them something that was so physical and so based in reality, and I'm going, but these teachings have changed my life. I have worked this is my body of work. I've worked my whole life to learn these things. And the more I do it, I see the light in my students' eyes and the excitement where these are things they've never heard before and they've never experienced before. That's not in an esoteric book. That's not something I had to channel. That's
Yeah.
that's physical knowledge that
Simple.
I learned, and it's simple, and it's not simple, but it is simple. And I say that to
It's
my
simple to
students all the time.
you,
But
the
it is
expert.
simple. Yeah, but it is simple in that logically you're like, "Yeah, I get it. You show me the anatomy, I know what you're talking about. I know you want me to keep my pharynx open, and you want me to send the air through there and blah, blah, blah." But to do it is another thing, because that's
Right.
where we have to get it to we have to, not manifest in the physical, we have to imprint it into the physical body so that it becomes natural and it becomes routine, right?
Right. So that's a
Well,
repetition.
yeah, but why would I devalue that?
Oh,
So now I'm not.
I do that too though with with teaching. I'm like, this stuff is so simple. Who am I to teach? And it's not even like who am I to teach because it's so simple. It's that like
Mm,
we as in humans, as in any physical person, when we're learning something new, we often just need a guide. And it's not that
yes.
like the lesson itself is complicated. It's that we
Mhm.
just need someone to walk us through and hold
Yes.
us accountable to the
Mhm.
repetition to build that second nature,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And so it's
Exactly,
like it's
and
extremely valuable to be a guide and to be a teacher.
yes, I agree, and it's made me a better student to even be a
Mm,
teacher, right? Because the things that I teach, and I feel like we've discussed this before, you and I, we teach what we wish we had taught to us when we were learning.
that's right.
Right? We shape our teachings based on what we didn't have maybe, or what we put
Mhm.
together that was a little jumbled and we've made it clearer for others. So,
Totally.
yeah, so there's that beautiful value in just don't discount, like, even an example is learning the piano, even things like that, or not even learning the piano, learning how to use a computer. I look at my senior mom, bless her heart. She almost needs a guide to use her iPhone, but that's just because she didn't grow up with that, but that's knowledge that when she figures it out, to see the light in her eyes when she knows how to do something on her iPhone, that's just a skill she didn't have before, but it's
Right.
miraculous to her. I remember the first time we talked on FaceTime when I was in Italy and she was here, and she's like, "Oh my god, I can see you, and I can hear you, and you're there, but we're, like, 6 hours apart." Like, it was fascinating.
It is fascinating,
Right?
really.
It is
Um,
fascinating.
yeah, I guess, like, all of this like, this whole conversation is about, like, coming back into, like, a simple way of being. So if you find
Yes.
yourself like, you find yourself on this spiritual journey, on this quest to the meaning of life, on this, like, trying to figure out the corruption that's happening in this world, is, like, just, like, remember to be anchored in the simplicity that is your third dimensional self. That, like, you find
That's
God
beautiful.
in simple actions. Like, honestly, God is found where you can find love. So if you can find love in a butterfly going by and take that as an omen, as a sign, that that's you being connected. If you can find God when your cat is, like, kneading on your legs and purring it up and drooling all over you, like, that love with your kitty is where God is. If you can find love when you're washing the dishes and being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for these dirty dishes because it meant that I had a meal to eat 20 minutes ago." I'm like, this is where God is. Like, if you can find
Mm,
God in, like, the next door neighbor's children outside playing and laughing and the sounds of the giggling children, it's just really in abundance everywhere you are is where God
mm,
lives, and wha like, I just really want that to sink in to your heart right now as you're hearing that, is, like,
mm,
God is both within you and without you. God is everywhere that you are, everywhere that you're not. God is in your grumpy neighbor. God is in the front path on your sidewalk that you hate and you keep tripping over. God is in the driver that just cut you off on the highway. God is in your mother's voice. God is in the rainbow in the sky after the storm. Like, literally everywhere is God. And
mm,
so Steph and I are going to move into
mm.
a new series. It's quite extensive that we've planned. I think we've planned the next 13 episodes.
Yeah, like, we're
Um,
going into July, I think, or August
yeah,
with this.
mid-July, we have booked,
Mel,
and we're
before
gonna
you hop
do
in,
yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
just say really quickly,
Yes,
as you
please.
said all that, that was so beautiful, thank you. Please know that we are all aware of the distractions that are keeping you from that too. You know, like, we
Yes,
are
good
we are
point.
aware of those things, and that is gonna lead into you talking about this series, but know that you coming back to this, there will be things to keep you and distract you from it because the powers that do not or sorry, do not be, the powers that should
Should
not
not
be
be.
do not be. The powers
Do
that
that.
should not be know this. And there are things to inundate us, to distract us, and to keep us away from that. So know that there might be a challenge sometimes to find that way back, but just keep seeking and keep trying. And know that you have us to keep reminding you, and you have the rainbow in the sky to keep reminding you too. Okay, I'm done. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, that's really key to note is that there is the powers that should not be that are always trying to pull us out of that coherence
Mhm.
with love with God. And that's also why we offer our members only healing episodes.
Yes.
Is yeah, it's a huge reason why we have those is because we are diving into a lot of dark truths in this
Mhm.
world, and we want you, our listener, to be anchored and grounded in God's love, in the earth's love, and, like,
Mm.
and know that that is way more powerful than the quote unquote agenda. And so we're gonna go into, like, a deep dive of different pantheons of gods. So
Mm.
episode by episode, and we're gonna go starting in present day, and we're gonna go back all the way through time chronologically backwards through the different, not all of them, but many of them. There's a
Mm.
lot of different pantheons of gods, and so we're gonna cover a handful of them, starting in modern day and going all the way back to Sumer, which is our first recorded history. And so we're gonna talk about the gods of now, right? We're gonna
Mm.
talk about political players
Mm.
and who the quote unquote gods in the political arena. That's the word, arena.
That's a
Okay.
good word.
Yeah. So there's this pantheon of gods that are, like, moving the politics that so many of the Muggle world is wrapped up in, and so we wanna
Yeah.
talk about them. Like, who are they? Why are we worshiping them, or some of us worshiping them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and talking about the divide and conquer agenda. Then we're gonna talk about the gods of Hollywood. We're gonna talk about the gods of the royals, right? The royal kingdom. Why are they so worshipped? We're gonna get into bloodlines here,
The
right?
monarchy.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about ancient bloodlines in that episode. We're gonna talk about the architects that are in power and, like, this invisible influence that's been happening since, let's say, the 17s when Tartaria, am I saying that right?
Yes,
Tartaria?
you said it right, yeah.
Yeah, and the mud floods and, like, the the cover up of our ancient, highly advanced past.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about Christianity. We're gonna talk about
That
the
old
fall of
chestnut.
Rome. What's that?
I said, "That old chestnut."
Just a small little
You know.
crack. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Abrahamic faiths and the gods of the Abrahamic faiths and, like, when
Mm.
we went from a pantheon to a monotheist god, and, like,
Uh,
why did that happen, right?
uh-huh.
We're gonna talk about the pagans. We're gonna talk about earth-based gods, the Celtics, the Druids, the Essenes, the Norse.
Uh-huh.
We're gonna get into the Greek pantheon, right? We're gonna get into Egyptian pantheon, Vedic, Mesoamerica, so we're gonna get into the dragons and Quetzalcoatl, and then we're gonna close that series with Sumer and the very first pantheon with when we talk about Enki and Enlil and the Anunnaks,
This is the
the
Voldenox.
Voldenoks.
And I think, friends, this is gonna be a really powerful way that you'll be able to look at the timeline of our history of Earth, humanity. Like, we were wanting to do a series on that, and I think this is the series on that.
Totally.
So we really wanna do this chronologically to help you and ourselves understand how this has all rolled out over time, starting at present, because that's obviously what we're currently in right now, and looking at the patterns, right? Where are the repeats that we're seeing over and over again?
Exactly.
Where are we not quite learning our lessons and we keep doing the same thing over and over again? So I'm super interested to see how much those cycles show up throughout these episodes. I think it's going to be very enlightening.
Yeah, we've got a lot of research to do, and I am jacked.
I'm here for it.
I'm so excited.
Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. And if you haven't already, friends, please do. We have a great Instagram account where we love to like share fun things and connect with you. And we've connected with some really awesome new subscribers and listeners. So please keep giving us your feedback, keep connecting with us. Sometimes it feels like we're talking into thin air. I know we're not, but we really love to hear from you. Like, we love doing this, but you're the reason we're doing this. So please come talk to us, write to us. Don't call us because I probably won't answer because I don't really answer my phone.
Yeah,
Also,
'cause
I'm
I'm
not
a
giving you my
Taurus.
phone number on a public platform. That's weird.
My phone is on do not disturb.
Yeah, right. I'll stop. I'm going to overdo that. I'm
We're
so
also
sorry.
gonna throw in a random episode on Bigfoot, and we have a
Yeah!
special guest speaker coming in on that, so we're gonna talk about Bigfoot and Bigfoot's connection to planet Earth and powers that should not be. I'm really, really excited for
I
that
am
also.
so excited. So if you're a
Yeah.
Bigfooter, please join us soon because it's coming.
Yes. And so I think with that, it's been a slice. So enjoyed this conversation and
Same.
looking forward to hearing your feedback. And yeah, we will see you next time. May peace be with you.
May peace be with you.